Today on the show, I'm going to tackle something I get asked quite a bit: how to get into reading comics and where to start. So I know that getting into comics can seem like a really daunting thing to do, with both Marvel and DC having about 80 years worth of history, but you don't need to know that history. You only need to learn it if it interests you. If you are new to comics, you actually do have a lot of options of how to start and where you're going to start. But step one will always be locate your nearest comic book shop. I get comments all the time saying, my closest comic book shop is miles away, I have no way to get to it. Honestly, if you live in the US, there's probably a comic book shop in your town and you just don't know about it. Here in England, comic book shops are obviously a bit of a rarity outside of the bigger cities, but they're definitely about, and they're only ever 1 or 2 towns away. I've linked a website down below called Comic Shop Locator, and you can use that to find your closest comic book shop. Now, I know very few of you are gonna live near me, but if you're in Kent in England and you're near Maidstone, I recommend the Grinning Demon in Maidstone. It's probably the best comic book shop in Kent in my opinion, and I've been to all of them. You'll find that most people that go to comic book shops instead of buying online don't have that stupid Marvel versus DC attitude. They just want to read good comics and talk about said good comic. If you are absolutely certain that there are no comic book shops near you or in the surrounding towns, then there is an online option, but I only recommend this as a last resort. It's a website called Comixology, and through this website you'll be able to get digital browser-based versions of monthly comics and back issues. Now, I only ever use this website if I'm reading a monthly series and for whatever reason I miss a month and I can't order in the comic, then I'll turn to Comixology and just get a digital version. I do, however, tend to pull out all the stops to get a physical copy of a comic before I ever turn to a digital copy, so just keep that in mind. Now you know where to get comics, you need to learn what to read. And with Marvel now and the New 52 being fairly recent things still, it's easier than ever to get into comics. If you go to your comic book store and ask for a recommendation, they'll tend to ask you what characters you like, what subjects you're into, and all that kind of thing, and they'll be able to give you a very good suggestion. And don't be scared if they recommend something that's like at issue 27, just keep reading the comics, stick with it every month, eventually it will make sense, I guarantee you. I've never understood why people are scared of comics not making sense when they first start. Nothing makes sense in anything when you first start. Like, I didn't come out of a womb going, yes, comics, hand me a comic, Spider-Man, Batman, I don't care, hand me a comic. Now, there are some people that want to read comics, but the idea of reading monthlies kind of turns them away. And for that, you can actually read trade paperbacks. Now, what a trade paperback does is it merges together a number of monthly issues, usually about 7, and publishes it as its own graphic novel. Now, the bad thing about trade paperbacks is that they lag behind monthly issues by a lot. So if you ever go on like the Spider-Man tag on Tumblr, you're going to find spoilers. Now, to give you an example of how much trades lag behind monthly issues, the last Teen Titans trade to come out was The Death of the Family. Batman Death of the Family finished in February of last year, and that trade came out in December. Personally, I use trades as a way of catching up to the monthly issues. Say like a series has been running for about a year or 2 and it's got a couple of trade issues out, then I can use those trades and then order in all the monthly issues between where the trades leave off and the monthlies are at now. Now, when to start reading is also a big factor that a lot of people neglect. If you start reading and there's this whole massive whole universe crossover event going on, you're obviously going to be very confused. Now, I'm going to be blunt here, but if you wanted to read Nightwing and the Teen Titans, that boat has already sailed. The comics are ending next month. The best time to get into comics, in my opinion, is the first Saturday of every May, because that's Free Comic Book Day, or as I like to call it, Christmas number 2. Now, I will say that not every comic book store does Free Comic Book Day, so make sure that your store does it before you turn up an hour before opening time expecting arms full of free comics. Also, please be respectful to other customers. Obviously, comics are in limited supply, so only pick up comics that you think you're going to like. So now, once you've found a comic book series that you like, you finally understand everything and you like the direction it's going, take note of the artist and the writer on the front cover. Now, if you really like a writer and an artist, chances are you're gonna like everything else that they've worked on, so just follow them. You're guaranteed to like whatever they do, so it's great. Now, for me personally, in terms of monthlies, I almost exclusively read the big two, and then for indie stuff, I pick up graphic novels. At the moment, in terms of monthlies, I am reading Nightwing, Batgirl, Batman, Detective Comics, Batwoman, Teen Titans, The Flash, Superboy, Harley Quinn, Swamp Thing, Constantine, and the Trinity of Sin comics from DC. And then for Marvel, I'm reading Wolverine and the X-Men, Miss Marvel, Fantastic Four, Seekers of the Weird, Black Widow, and the X-Men. Now keep in mind, when you first start, you do not need to be reading that many. You need to be reading about a quarter of that number. So, affording comics, how do you do it? Well, you work to get money and you spend that money on your comics. It's that simple. Personally, I find that budgeting helps. I personally budget £40 a week for my comics, and that includes my travel expenses to get to the comic book shop. Now, I never spend anywhere near that full £40, but it is there just in case a new series is going to start that I didn't know about, or if there's a new graphic novel out that I didn't realize was coming out so soon, or if there's a new figure out that I really want to get for myself. And whatever money I have left over, I add it to the next week's £40. So say I had £20 left over one week, the next week I'll have £60. And say at the end of the month I have £70. Well, that money rolls over into the next month, so I'll have my first week covered and a bit of my second week covered. If you're still kind of confused on where to start with comics, I recommend you check out Amy Dallen's Talking Comics Weekly. It's a fan-freaking-dabby-dozy show that really gives great recommendations on where to get started with comics. I do just want to say that this channel has nothing to do with Geek and Sundry. I just really like that show and I honestly fully recommend it, and anything on the Geek and Sundry network, honestly, it's all really good stuff.
It's super effective!
Okay guys, that is it for today. If you have any recommendations for getting started in comics, please let me know in the comments down below. And also don't forget to thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more comic book advice. And also don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. My name is Faust, this has been Exploring Comics, and it is super effective.